guys, I'm Sohal from Blue Rose Artistry and I'm doing a takeover today on Dress Your Face Live to show you guys how I do my timeless bridal looks. And this is my gorgeous model Savina and this is the look I created today. Do you want to close your eyes? And if you guys are interested, keep on watching. I do a full talk through step-by-step tutorial on how I created this beautiful bridal glam. I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial and you can follow me on my Instagram channel at Blue Rose Artistry and my YouTube as well, where I do post tutorials and other videos where you can check out my work. Hi guys, I'm Sohal from Blue Rose Artistry on Instagram and I'm about to create a soft, effortless bridal glam on my gorgeous model Savina, and I'm just gonna get started. The first thing I'm gonna be using is Embryos, and this is a moisturizer that I use as like a mask to prep the skin. So I'm gonna apply a generous amount and do a thick layer all over her face. I'm using the MAC 159 brush to apply this. And I'm just gonna go all over her face, doing a nice, generous, thick layer. Turn towards me. This is really gonna make her makeup look not cakey, look soft, and last all day without drying out. Because I am gonna be doing heavy makeup, because for Indian weddings, we do typically have to keep it on for 12 plus hours a day. So I wanna make sure everything lasts. And I'm gonna let this soak in for a few minutes. While it's soaking in, I'm gonna prep her lips. So for her lips, I'm gonna be using the Laneige lip mask on your finger. Just put that all over your lips. Perfect, and then next I'm gonna prep her eyes. So I'm gonna go in with an eye cream. I'm gonna use the It Cosmetics Confidence in a Cream. This is a really nice hydrating eye cream. Okay. And I'm just using my ring finger because it has the least amount of pressure, and just applying it right underneath her eyes. Now I'm just pushing in the access. I let it set for about 5 minutes before I blended it out. Turn towards me, Savina. And I'm really pushing it into the skin. If you look at her skin right now, it looks super hydrated, super, super glowy, and it's ready to be primed for makeup. So the first thing I like to use is an oil or a serum. I'm gonna be using today the Mindful 5 by Smashbox. This is what it looks like. And I'm gonna apply that all over her face, starting with her cheeks, and then her forehead. And then I'm gonna use my beauty sponge to push everything in. The sponge I'm using, this is from LC Cosmetics. And it's just gonna push everything in. And once I do the oil, like I always want the skin to look like she just had a facial. And if it doesn't look like that, that means I haven't used enough hydrating products to give her a youthful glow, so the makeup goes on beautifully. If it's looking dry at this point, you do want to go back and add more moisturizer or more oil, so everything else goes on seamlessly on top. The primer that I'm going to use today is the Versali Skin Tone Blur. This is one of my favorite primers, and it really smooths the skin and gives you a blurred skin finish, and I love that, but it's also very subtle. It's not heavy. I'm still using the same brush, and I'm going to concentrate it on the areas where I see any pores, so it gives her a very smooth skin finish. And anywhere where there's texture as well, because this will definitely smooth that out. I do want to just concentrate this where I have any problem areas instead of putting it all over the whole face. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and color correct her. Now that I'm happy with the skin prep, I'm going to be using the Vasanti Cosmetics VO2 I'm just gonna take that underneath her eyes and in any areas where she has any discoloration, like around the mouth, which is really common for a lot of my clients. So just a little bit underneath her eyes. And the rest I'm gonna take around her mouth. I love this color corrector because it blends out so easily and works for all of my clients. Like, it's not super heavy, it's not super orange, it doesn't peek through the foundation. So it's a super, super easy corrector to use. Just blending it out with my beauty blender. My sponge is wet. I always work with a soaked sponge. So it blends out so nicely. It doesn't even look like it was like super orange or anything. It almost looks like concealer. I do wear this on its own sometimes as well. Next, I'm gonna go in with the Hollywood Beauty Wand from Charlotte Tilbury in the shade Spotlight. This is what it looks like. I'm just gonna add this to the high points of her face. And I'm just gonna use the same brush. I'll just use the back side of it. Starting with her cheekbones. Turn that way. And this is also gonna make her foundation look really nice and luminous, even though it's crazy full coverage. Adding a little bit to her forehead and her chin as well. I'm gonna go in with foundation. I'm gonna be using a Stromboli from NARS. This is the Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. This is what it looks like. And I'm about to do probably 3 to 4 pumps all over her face. Turn that way. So, starting with a little bit, I'm gonna buff it out. Depending on my client's skin, I will layer this foundation. I will do a few layers, or I will use like 2 to 3 different foundations to get the coverage that I need. But I think for Savina, 1 light layer should be fine. It is pretty full coverage, so I don't need too much. And as I go, I'm gonna buff it out too with my blender. Turn towards me. And I'm not too worried about it being exactly matching every part of her face, because she does have different tones. On her face, like these areas are a little bit darker than the rest of her face. Looks great. But I do want to match her neck and her overall body. I'm going to contour her, highlight her as well. So that's obviously going to bring in a lot more color and tone too. So not too worried about having the exact match all over right now. This is just like my initial layer. Turn towards me. And then I'm just gonna go back in wherever I think I wanna do a little bit more coverage, mostly just concentrating on the cheeks. Turn it away. I really want to make sure I push the foundation in really well and it's not left heavy in any areas. Okay, now I'm going to go in with her concealer. I'm going to be using Shape Tape in medium and light medium honey. Okay, so first I'm going to go in with medium and really conceal like her under eyes, and then I'm going to add a little bit of light medium honey in to create a little bit more of a highlight. So I'm using a Real Techniques setting brush for this, and I'm just gonna pat on the product. I'm gonna take it down the side of her nose, and taking it up to her hairline, which is really gonna pull her face upwards and kind of give it like a very lifted look, which I love. So I love to take my concealer up high. And then a little bit that's left, I'm just gonna do her chin, a little bit on her nose, a little bit on her forehead. And then I'm gonna go in with the light medium honey now. Look up. Before I blend this out, just add a little bit right on top to really brighten a little bit extra. For the under eye concealer, I do like to let it sit for like a minute before I blend it out, but I do want to quickly blend out the forehead, the nose, and the chin. Any area that you want fuller coverage, let the concealer sit there for a minute. If you want a little bit more sheer coverage, then do brush it out right away. Okay, so now I'm just going in and blending out the concealer, really making sure there's no lines anywhere. Pushing that in well. Turn that way. For her under eyes, I'm gonna go in with NC30. Look up, and I'm gonna start right underneath and really press in that powder. This is gonna give her an airbrush finish, and it's also gonna make sure nothing moves all day. Even if there's crying, it's gonna all stay put. You guys can see the difference between the eye that's set and the one that's not set. Same thing on this side. Really being generous with the powder. I actually learned this tip from Tam when I took her class in Seattle, probably like 5 years ago. And since then, I can't use any other powder underneath the eyes. Just going to the center of her brows as well. Anywhere where I want a really full coverage setting, I'll go in and add this. Okay, and then for the rest of her face, I'm going to use Charlotte Tilbury's Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder in shade 2. And I'm just gonna, this is a much more sheer powder, so I'm just gonna take this all over and just set her face. Turn towards me. Okay, I'm happy with how her face looks now, so I'm gonna go ahead and bake her. To bake, I'm gonna be using the Huda Beauty powder in Banana Bread. This is my favorite powder for baking. And I'm just gonna take my damp beauty blender and build the bake and really get into her concealer and powder to make sure it locks in even tighter. I'm going to be working with pretty dark tones today, so I do want to make sure that there's enough powder here to catch any fallout that I may have. Also like to do, try and swing a little more. Also like to do a little bit right here. This is going to kind of reverse contour and give her, once I dust it off, you'll see like a natural contour. Turn that way. A little bit less. A lot bit less actually, just look straight. And same thing on this side. Really pushing in that bake, taking it down the side of the nose, and pulling it all the way up again for that really chiseled, pulled upwards effect. And if your client or model has laugh lines, you can also push this into the laugh lines. And then doing the jawline again on this side. Can you turn the other way? Turn back. And then if you have any areas that you do want to blur, go ahead and add a little bit more. I always love doing the center of the forehead. I feel like it just makes the whole look really pulled together and really clean. Okay, now I'm going to start her initial contour. So I'm going to go in with something really light and natural. I'm going to go in with NC41 in the Studio Fix powder, which is just a shade or two darker than her skin tone. And I'm just going to lightly start building that contour. Turn this way, just so it looks super seamless and nothing heavy. Turn towards me. So even here, just very, very light and very, very natural. Turn that way. She already has a super chiseled jawline, so I don't need to do too much there, but I'm going to do a little bit, and then just right underneath her cheekbones as well. Look straight, right underneath the chin. And then I'm going to start my nose contour. I'm going to be using the NARS Ida brush to do this. Same powder, turn this way. Just gently building that base. So now that when I go in with a darker nose contour color or like contour all over, it's not going to look harsh. It's going to look soft, diffused, and blended, even though it is still super dramatic and super heavy. I'm just going to take my wipe and just clean off the little bit that I got on her hair. Take this a little bit, turn towards me. And this side as well. My pet peeve is when there's makeup in the hair. So I always want to make sure it's clean. Look straight. She does a microbladed brows, so I don't need to do too much to her brows, but I do want to still clean them up and define them. I'm going to start with Goof Proof from Benefit Cosmetics in shade 4. Close your eyes. And I'm just going to stretch and start drawing an outline just right underneath to give her brows a little bit of definition. Can I turn them? Okay, turn towards me. This is one. Actually, I like both. So just kind of giving that definition right underneath and that structure, and then I'm going to fill the rest in with powder. But before I do so, I'm going to trim them slightly. And then now I'm going to use an angled brush to do the rest of her brows with powder. The brush I'm using is going to be the MAC 266S. And the powder I'm using is dark brown from ABH. They're not perfect. Sometimes I'll just do like to the best of my ability and then just go back at the end, like not spend too much time on brows. I personally find brows the hardest part of makeup. So that's why I do it in steps. Like I'll just come back if I'm not 100% happy. So now I'm just gonna use a concealer. I'm using the Vasanti medium beige concealer, cream concealer right now. And I'm just gonna go right underneath the brow and clean it up. And you can do this on top as well if you need it. Cleaning up the brows is so important, especially on clients and models, like more so than yourself. Like it definitely gives the makeup a professional finish and a professional look versus if you don't clean them up and they look a lot more undone and natural. Now I'm going to take a larger brush and just blend that out. I'm using the Fenty 240 eyeshadow brush. And now I'm going to take a brow gel. I'm going to use Dip Brow from ABH in the shade Dark Brown. I'm going in with the ABH Amazing highlighter, which is my favorite, and I'm just going to do her tear duct and her brow bone. And then I'm gonna do some eyeshadow primer. I'm gonna do soft ochre from MAC, which is a paint pot. Next, I'm about to do some eyeshadow primer. I'm actually gonna use P. Louise in the shade 2 Rumor. And I'm using a fluffy Morphe eyeshadow brush to apply it. And I'm just patting it onto the lids. I'm just gonna use the same brush that I used to blend out the concealer to blend this out as well. So I don't have too much product. Okay, I'm about to start her waterline first. Look up. And I was gonna do black, but I think I'm gonna do brown because lately I've been really into like brown shimmery waterlines. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm starting with the Dose of Colors Loyal crayon. I love these crayons. They're so creamy and they look so nice. The colors are so beautiful. And I love brown because it just makes your eye color pop so much as well. And it doesn't look as harsh as black. Especially for daytime events, sometimes brown is like a safer choice. Lash line, not just applying in the waterline. And now I'm gonna take the Marc Jacobs pencil in shade Cocoa. So I'm gonna use the Marc Jacobs pencil in Glitter Sweet. It's like a shimmery bronze color, look up. And I'm just gonna layer it over that brown, and this is just gonna give a little bit of like a sparkly, bronzy glow. Turn towards you. Okay. And same thing with this color. I'm like bringing it into the lash line as well. Sticking to the browns because I am doing like a soft brown smoky. I'm gonna be starting with this Jeffree Star palette. This is what it looks like. I need you to hold this. I'll say the names of the colors as I go. So I'm gonna start with I'm Close and Money Shot. I'm gonna mix the two. And I'm using a really like a flat brush so I get more of a precise application right underneath her lash line. I'm absolutely obsessed with this palette. The mattes in it are so pretty. It's all matte and they're like every color is so nice. And the quality of Jeffree Star eyeshadows is always amazing. So I'm gonna drag it out a little bit further so the top has something to blend into. And then I'm gonna use the color called Craving Chocolate. Look up. And I'm using a fluffy angled brush now. This is from Luxie, and I'm gonna start to melt this up into the darker tone. On the side, really trying to get that seamless blend. Still using Craving Chocolate. Now I'm gonna go in with a darker shade, so I think I'll go in with Invitation Only. Actually, I'll go in with Money Shot and kind of put it right in the middle to add a little bit more depth. If I want a darker finish, then I go into the darker color at the end. But if I want a lighter, softer finish, then I start with the dark and work my way to the light. Okay, so I feel like it needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna go back in with I'm Close. Just using the tip of the brush, just adding a little bit right close to the lash line. Now I'm gonna be working on her top. I'm gonna kind of stick to the same tones. So I'll start with something lighter first. I'll use the color, it's called Top. And I'm gonna start building her crease with this. It's like a light neutral peachy nude. And really just pulling that crease out, keeping everything very soft and very diffused. Okay, and I'm gonna darken the color a little bit. I think I'm gonna go in with Craving Chocolate. Such a pretty warm brown. And as the colors start to get darker, I start to place it a little bit lower. Blending really well. And softly creating that transition. Melting it into that top color without it being going up too high. And at any point I feel like if it's getting too high, I'll just go back in with my original color and just really blend everything. Okay, now I'm gonna grab a different brush. I'm using the Smith 230 brush. The first brush I was using was the MAC 224. So these are the two brushes I'm working with. So with the Smith one, I'm gonna take Invitation Only. And I'm just gonna tap it onto most of the lid. I'm going about 2/3 of the way up. And then taking Craving Chocolate again with a fluffier brush and just melting that color in. Still keeping all the darker tones on the lid. And then if you want to accentuate to the side, you can. Okay, now I'm gonna take a little bit of Money Shot and tap it even less than halfway. Mostly close to the lash line. And just taking my brush with no new product and just blending it, making sure there's no harsh lines. Now I'm gonna take I'm Close, which is a really, really dark brown, and put it really, really close to the lash line again, and not even taking it too close to the front of the eye at this point, because that's gonna close her eyes off. You want her eyes to look nice and open. Blend it out. I love it already. I don't think I'm gonna add anything else. For the eyeshadows, I love how it looks. I'm gonna go back with the highlighter again. I think I'm Persona Cosmetics Zuma Kelly Glow. And I'm just gonna intensify that inner corner. Open. Intensifying it, and even taking a little bit, look straight. Like your whole head, yeah. Taking a little bit underneath as well to really make the eyes pop. And then I'm gonna dust off all the bake. So I'm using this Lee Swatinier giant fan brush. This side as well, and then I'm gonna start flickering it in flickering motions. Really making sure all that fallout just flies right off. So I'm gonna take my big brush that I use to put on powder, and I'm gonna use Give Me Some from MAC, and I'm just gonna melt all the colors on her face together with this bronzer. Perfect. I'm gonna do her blush as well. I'm gonna use Hot Mama from the Balm, which is one of my favorite blush colors. I'm using the MAC 1/16 S brush, smelling, and starting it right at the apple of her cheek, and then just dragging it up into the contour. Other side. Same thing with this side, starting with the apples and working my way up. The main product deposit is right on the cheeks. That's just how I prefer it. I'm gonna take Cheeky Bronze from MAC, which is a highlighter, and same brush, smiling, and just add a little bit more onto the apples because this is really gonna give her a really nice glow. Now I'm gonna Fix Plus her, or use a setting spray of some kind. So I think I'm gonna do Quick Fix from Urban Decay. And I'm just gonna sort of set her whole face as well as prep it for highlight. So I'm gonna be using LC Cosmetics Golden Haze, and I love the lightest color that's right up here. Turn towards me. And just gonna touch up her nose highlight. This highlighter really gives like that wet look, which I love. And add a little bit more to her eyes too. I love layering highlighters because I feel like the different textures just give such a nice look and different dimension versus using just one and giving like a flat highlight. And start building it on her cheeks. So same thing with this side, starting right here. And then I'm gonna intensify it a little bit by taking Zuma again from Persona Cosmetics. I'm just adding a little bit on top. Okay, time for some liner and lashes. So before I do her liner, I'm gonna take my Huda Beauty pencil. This is the lifeliner, I'm gonna use the pencil side. Look up and out. And I'm just gonna tightline her to make sure we have no gaps. If someone's eyes are really sensitive, then I'll skip tightlining the outside, but I always do the inner corner because that part really makes the most difference. For liner, I'm gonna use Swing Liner from the Balm. I'm gonna give her a nice strong wing. It's not dark enough, so I'm gonna go and darken it. So to darken liner, which my favorite gel liner is Inglot number 7. And I'm just gonna use any flat or angled brush. This liner is so waterproof and so black and so messy, so you have to be really careful with it. That's why I don't like to start with it. So I'm just using a flat brush, and I'm just gonna go over where we did her liner. I'm just gonna trace it and clean it up a little bit as well if I need to. Lashes, I actually have my own brand of lashes, and that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using the style Fendi, which is my most dramatic reception glam heavy sort of style. So they're actually longer when you get them, but I did trim them a little bit shorter so they work better for her eyes. And then I'm going to use House of Lashes Lash Glue, which is my favorite, and prep them. I do like to let them sit for a minute or two before I apply them. So what I usually do is apply the lash glue, and then I will do the mascara and then go back in with the lashes, because by then the glue's tacky and sticks on way better. This lash glue is like waterproof. It's also hypoallergenic. It's works for all my clients. I love it. Air Volume Mascara from L'Oreal Paris. This is a new launch of theirs. I usually just give my clients the mascaras that I use if I'm trying new ones, but I do get a lot in PR, so this is actually a new PR one that I haven't tried yet, but I'm not super picky about which mascara I'm using because I do use lashes all the time. But my favorite mascara right now is the Charlotte Tilbury, the new pink one. I love that mascara. Okay, looking down. Making sure the lower lashes are nicely coated. I'm not a big fan of lower lashes. I do carry them, and I do have them in my line as well because my clients do ask for them, but I personally just don't prefer them. I feel like they can be very heavy and make the eyes look droopy or like more like cartoony. If you do like a nice coat of mascara, you're usually okay without them. Looking down, turning towards me. And I'm just gonna make sure she's stretching her eyes while I apply these. And then if need be, I will add individuals, but I kind of am happy with how they look, so I don't think I need to. Look down. Yeah, so these lashes actually come quite a bit longer. I did trim off about 2 of the little bunches to make them fit better. Always gotta make sure lashes are trimmed right because you don't want your client or model's eyes to start watering. So just start smaller if you need to, and then always build with individuals. Perfect, so we're almost done. We're gonna do her lips now. I'm starting with Hoover. And just doing the outsides of her lips, drawing them out slightly. For her lip color, I'm gonna mix, actually I'm gonna start with Anastasia Beverly Hills in Hudson, which is one of my favorite lip colors. And then I'm gonna take a lighter tone for the center of the lip. I'm gonna take Stripped from Anastasia as well and apply that in the center. The brush I'm using is the Makeup Forever lip brush, which is one of my favorite. Go in with Hudson first. If you draw out the lips with lip liner, if you're using liquid lipstick, I always like to just take it all the way through and don't leave any areas that aren't covered, because that's really gonna give the illusion of fuller lips. I'm gonna mix the Stripped into Hudson so it's not super light, and just apply it mostly in the center but kind of taking it out. Then I also love adding gloss when I'm trying to make the lips look fuller in Fenty Glow. I love the Fenty glosses because they're not sticky and the colors are so pretty. And I'm just gonna add that right into the center. Perfect, and her makeup is all done. I'm gonna have her look down. And then I'm actually gonna place her jewelry on. Perfect, thank you so much for watching and joining us today in this tutorial.